Rick, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Cedarburg School Board. Today is Monday, May 24th, 2021 at 6:30. I'd like to do attendance roll call. Padberg.
Here.
Netzel.
Here.
Leach.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Creer.
Here.
Reimer's here. Thank you. This is a special meeting of the Cedarburg Board of Education, and it is a public meeting. Prior notices have been placed in the district, and additional copies were forwarded to the city and town of Cedarburg, as well as the News Graphic and Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The first item, or next item rather, on the agenda for this special meeting is the public comment section. And it looks like we will have more speakers than our policy allows. So would anyone like to make a motion to extend the time period for the public comment?
Yeah, I'll move to extend it past 30. Do we want to give a time or just? To 60? More than enough time?
Yeah, I would think that would be enough.
Okay, I move to put the speaking portion to 60 minutes.
Wouldn't it make sense to have the superintendent do the presentation and then have public comment so that they know what they're commenting on? Rather than jumping into public comment without seeing the presentation?
Sure, we could do that if you'd like.
I think it makes sense.
Okay. So we will do the public comment after Mr. Bugnacki's presentation.
But I'll second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? I'll do a roll call. Padberg.
Aye.
Netzel.
Aye.
Leach.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Creer.
Aye.
And Reimer is an aye, so that will be extended to 60 minutes. And Mr. Bugnacki.
On our YouTube channel. We appreciate you joining us this evening. It seems like we were just here less than a week ago, and we were. And we're excited to continue the conversation and really focus on bringing a positive closure to this school year and beginning to concentrate on what it means to enter the year next year in a normal situation. We know this is a very fluid environment with changes happening around us very rapidly. We have 11 days of school left, 7 for our seniors, and we certainly would rather not be here and have to deal with this distraction, but we certainly understand the importance of this topic for all of you. Our goal through this year has been to ensure access, quality, and safety, which we have done, and we've done that well. Our outstanding teachers, support staff, administrators, maintenance custodian staff have done incredible work in a pressured environment that was less than ideal. I do want to give a shout out to a number of staff members that are leaving us this year who are retiring. And we have Victoria Benson-Hora, Julie Kaler, Judy Plaster, Kathleen Koster, Kathy Pollack, David Pollack, Diane Trowbridge, and Lisa Court. And these teachers certainly have been part of our crew this year that have done an outstanding job in providing services to our students during this pandemic. And it's actually in this particular room, it was Kathleen Koster and Victoria Benson-Hora who got creative and were able to provide opportunities for our students to continue to sing and for our choir to practice and our band to perform in this area as well. So we certainly give a shout out to all these individuals for the great work that they have done throughout this year to ensure a quality program for our students. So it's all about access, quality, and safety. Not only did we provide a quality program, we made certain that everyone had access to a quality program. Our decisions have always been guided on what's best for our students and looking at factors that address the safety. These are just a few of the sources that we consulted. I think the best data source we have is the 420 teachers we have in the system and 3,100 kids that we have in the system. We have used our data to make informed decisions to minimize disruptions to the system. As a district, we have never been followers. We've always made decisions that are in the best interest of our students. We do what is right. We don't do what's convenient. We don't do what's trendy. We're not following what's popular. Our goal throughout this entire pandemic has been to do what's right for our kids. That goal has been the same goal, whether we've had a pandemic or not. It's always to do the right thing for our kids. We do not follow standards set by others. We set a standard that's best for our kids. That is how we've been successful throughout this pandemic, and that is how we'll continue to be successful after the pandemic. The next slide is just an update on the current guidelines from the CDC, and Nicole Kafka is here, I believe. Nicole is not here yet. So I will cover this particular slide. Just want to give you an update of where the CDC guidelines are at this particular time. All of you are tracking on this information, and I think it's important that we are aware of it. Many have asked, are you following the CDC guidelines? We use them as guidelines. I can tell you since this pandemic began, we have not adhered entirely to the guidelines. A perfect example is the social distancing. They had asked that schools maintain social distancing of 6 feet, and we did not follow that since the beginning of the year, and we made that clear to our parents. It was somewhere between 2 to 6 feet. So we know that the guidelines are out there, and we know that they have changed, and we try to adhere to them as we do the Washington Ozaukee Public Health Department guidelines and the Department of Health Services. I'm not going to go through each one of these cells, but I think one that's certainly noteworthy is the vaccination cell there, and we all know that vaccines are available for those who are 12 years or older, and so the health department is beginning to track on that. Not us, but the health department. You can see that information on their slide. So this is the health department slide. I'm not going to go into great detail on this. All of you have access to this. Our burden continues to drop in the school district attendance area. We're at 88, which is moderately high. It's not the lowest we've been, but we're certainly trending in the right direction. And this is one of the sources that we certainly use and when we make informed decisions for our students and our staff. This is a website that we have that's open to the public, and it is what we use just to track the number of cases for the past 14 days and 30 days in the district. And our numbers are trending in a great direction. They're extremely positive, and I'd have to say that that's heading in the right direction due to our mitigation measures we have in place. According to our data, in the last 30 days, we've had a single positive case for students and a single positive case for our staff. And this information is available to the public on our website. Another dashboard that we tend to track on is the COVID quarantine, COVID positive, and COVID symptoms. This is an internal tracking dashboard, and you can see it's flattening out, which is awesome. That's exactly what we would like to see. If you go back to November, December, the data was extremely, it was fairly high. We had absentee rates of about 20% or more in several of our buildings. So we're trending in the right direction, which is awesome. Again, I think it's due to many of the measures that we have in place and the great practices that our students and staff continue to follow. So this is a 90-day look back, and it's hard to see what all this is. So we broke it down to a particular chart that describes it in better detail. I'm just going to pause and see if Nicole is here. Nicole is not, so I'll continue to talk to this slide. So what you see is each column, elementary school, middle school, and high school, in positive cases the last 30 days, and then the number of students quarantined, and positive cases in the last 90 days, and the number of quarantines in the last 90 days. And so this is just another way of looking at the data, and I can assure you that we are heading in the right direction. This is positive news for the system, and our measures are working. And Our data tracking has been extremely detailed throughout this entire pandemic, and I'm pleased to say that our data is accurate. In fact, we share our data with the health department so they can see just how we are trending for the last 90 days. We do know that the changes that the board has made since the last board meeting have been a very positive change. If you recall, board members, you made a change and you indicated that contact tracing would be done at 3 feet versus 6 feet. That doesn't align with the CDC guidelines. Contact tracing at the CDC is 6 feet, but that change allowed less kids or 0 kids to be quarantined. So it was a day after the board meeting when we had a positive case at the high school. Had we used the 6 feet of social distancing, we would have had 7 kids quarantined, but because of that change that the board made to 3 feet, we had 0 kids quarantined. So that has been something that we've been tracking on throughout the entire year because we want to have less students quarantined. And if you recall back at the last board meeting, we were talking about students who had been quarantined 3 and 4 times, and that's a significant amount. So that change that the board made certainly is having a positive impact on our system. This is a slide that just highlights some of the, I call it, baked-in mitigation measures that are in the system and that will continue through the rest of this year into summer and summer academy and through the start of next year and through next year. John Coster, Director of Buildings and Grounds, spoke to this slide at the last board meeting. We don't need to get into great detail other than John will better than any school system, and he calls it a hospital quality air in our system. And I think that has a lot to do with how our rates have been trending downward in the last 30 to 90 days. The next slide talks about our learning environment, and I've asked Alan Groth, the Director of Curriculum Instruction, to come and speak to this. And this is a slide that many of you are familiar with if you attended the last board meeting.
So this slide shows the public the number of students that were enrolled both in person and virtually semester 1 as compared to semester 2. So using all safety protocols and mitigation measures that we implemented into the system, roughly 350 students came back into the system at semester number 2. So we're excited about that. The next slide gives you an overview of some of the various features that relate to teaching and learning. The first one, again, the safety protocols that were put into place. So persistent adherence to all the safety protocols that the district had implemented in the fall, cleaning procedures, seating arrangements, group distancing, mask requirements, cohorting of groups, and even a more elaborate schedule change here at the high school. So all of those things were in place and preceded the semester 2 decision that families made. For students and parents, we had increased in-person placement. As I had just said, roughly over 300 students re-enter the system. There's a lot of reacclimation of those students back into procedures and protocols that they may not have been familiar with. So everything from passing to seating arrangements to reacclimating to classroom procedures. And perhaps some parents and guardians also reverted back to previous pre-COVID schedules and routines in their homes. From a teaching and learning standpoint, teaching students in both or in any environment requires a great deal of preparation. So teachers understanding what the curriculum is, there's looking at the outcomes and designing lessons that are engaging for students in person, not to mention virtual. So from a teaching standpoint, the rigor and time and effort that went into deploying all the instruction, both for in-person and at home. We applaud our teachers' efforts this year for their steadfastness to really thoughtfully and carefully plan instruction in both these settings. So again, you've got the reacclimation of students coming back into the system during these placement changes. And in some cases at the elementary level in particular for instructional efficiencies, we reorganized quite a few students into new virtual classroom settings rather than having so many teachers teaching virtually. So that was a change. We made parents aware of this in advance so they understood that may happen based on what parents decided at second semester. And then principals met together and there were some adjustments that occurred. And then again, planning, delivering instruction, assessing learning for students in both environments continues to occur by teachers, which again, we applaud their efforts and students and parent responsiveness on all those areas.
Excellent. Thank you, Alan. The next slide is on the implications for student services, and our student services director, Ted Knoll, will take this slide.
Thank you and good evening. Tonight I'm presenting just a short slide in regards to some of just the legal implications that we may run into, not only for the remainder of this year, but next year, depending on the outcomes of the pandemic and where it's trending. So, of course, state law requires the school district to keep students safe. In the May 18th DHS update, they continue to recommend mitigation measures until there is a vaccine available for all school-age children. So the points below are kind of following that, that recommendation. But students with medical conditions are owed a duty of care, including not being exposed to unsafe conditions in school. Potential exposure to health hazards may result in more students being identified by medical providers as requiring that the district provide homebound instruction, which is something that would be off-site or virtual or a combination of those, which could be not only very logistically difficult, but also financially challenging as well. Students identified under the IDA in Section 504, which are federal protections, of course, with medical conditions may require a variety of different types of instruction and accommodation, very similar to the point above, if they are not able to enter the school safely. And of course, this is done on the advice of doctor recommendations, and we've got protocols already set in place for next year.
Thanks, Ted.
So Ted, I just have a follow-up on that. When it says we have obligation to keep students safe, that means what?
So whether health and safety, a variety of things. So whatever our protocols are for keeping students safe and healthy, that they are consistent and work in the best interest of keeping children in a good, viable learning environment.
Okay.
Thanks, Ted. The next slide is a slide that deals with assessment, and I've asked Kirsten Rose to address this, Director of Assessment and Technology.
Good evening. As you know, assessment and data is a huge part of our teaching and learning practices here. And so all year long, we've been working with our teachers and our families to provide assessments and procedures for those to fidelity and to get the best data that we can. And currently, we still are in some assessment windows. We did finish up our state assessments. Both, all of those assessments were taken on campus as required by the state. We are in the middle of our spring MAP assessment window. We have students taking those assessments in school, at home, or a combination based on what grade level that they are in. And then also we have our advanced placement window right now, still finishing up. That is a truly high stakes assessment for our students. So we have students who are taking assessments at home when they can, and also in school. There are some assessments that actually require all of our students with APs to be on campus. So we'll finish both of those, the MAP and AP assessments, by the 28th of May.
Thanks, Kirsten. The next slide has to deal with staffing, and ask Connor Farner, the Director of Human Resources, to address this slide.
Thank you. It's been a pretty amazing year. All things considered, as stressful as it was for a good chunk of the year, we really look back and feel strongly about our ability to stay open the vast majority of the time, other than those few days in November. So the biggest reason that we've been able to stay open all year is because of the mitigation that we have put in place. With 2 weeks to go, very hard to say what impact any changes would have at this point. I can just tell you that the 3 bullet points would be potential issues that we would have to deal with based on how staff would respond to any changes. Medical reasons, we definitely have some staff members who have legitimate medical issues, and so because we were using strong mitigation efforts, they were able to get to work. We were able to help them and have them be safe, and we had good results. But those that do have serious issues, they may indicate that they would have difficulty reporting if there are no longer the same mitigation efforts in place. That could result in FMLA leaves, and it could also lead to potential ADA issues, which does require the interactive process to determine reasonable accommodations. So I can't predict what would happen. Part of my job is make sure you understand what could happen.
Hey, Conrad, so right now there's, what, like 320 plus courses in the academy?
Summer
Something like
academy?
that, and there's like, obviously, teachers do multiple courses over the 2 sessions. Do you know, like ballpark, how many teachers you have signed up in totality for summer academy?
We're fully staffed. I think it's around 70 teachers ballpark,
Yeah,
and a few paraprofessionals that we're still working on.
yeah. I just glanced, it looks like you were able to staff it, so.
Yep, we're fully staffed as of this week.
Yeah,
No.
okay.
Thanks, Conrad. Before we hop onto the other slide, and I don't know if that's wood, Conrad, just to
Looks like.
reiterate, board members, so what we're talking about is a stable student population right now in the system and stable staffing. And so any change in the mitigation measures, I think it would warrant us to reach out to the parents and see whether they would want to continue in this environment or the virtual environment. And if they do select the virtual environment, then we would have to potentially adjust staffing. The point being, it's a disruption right now with 11 days of school left that just does not, I believe, is worth the squeeze, especially when you look at the assessments that are underway. And that's why I asked Kirsten to speak to that assessment, because assessments are important to us. We want to get data on our students so we can continue to provide the interventions and supports that they need throughout the summer and into the fall. So a disruption at this time is not something that we would be in favor of, and that's what we would see, we believe, if any of those mitigation measures were adjusted.
Todd, I think a lot of schools are going, I've seen reports of some going mask optional, and I haven't heard anything about disruption or big problems. What makes our district different?
Yeah, I guess that's a great question, Dave, and
Can we refrain from that? We'll have to take a recess if there's going to be clapping or cheering from anyone on anything tonight. So please refrain from that. I know everyone's passionate about this subject, but if we're going to do that, we'll just take a series of recesses, and eventually, we might have to end the meeting. So no one wants to do that. Thank you.
so that's a great question, Dave, and I think I'll say we're Cedarburg. I think as I have my opening comments, we're not followers, we are leaders. We make good decisions that are in the best interest of our kids, and we've done that this entire year. We've been open with the exception of closing for a particular week when we were unable to staff our classrooms due to the spread of COVID. So I think we've done some exceptional work, and when I look at the disruption, Dave, that it would cause, I think that disruption outweighs the benefit of just remaining masked for the next 11 days. Other districts certainly are making those decisions. I can't speak for those. I have spoken to administrators in other districts, and it is a disruption. It takes the attention off of learning. It takes the attention off of teaching, and it puts the attention now on speaking to students and helping them navigate what it's like to be without a mask in an environment when some of them may be experiencing some risks, either at home or just discomfort and anxiety around not seeing individuals with masks.
And that goes both ways, of course.
I know we're going to have to navigate that in the future, and as we go through this presentation, I think you'll see a progression back to a normal environment in the fall. I had put that information out to the parents and out to the board. So I think this is just part of our progression to get back there and to do it in a way that's fairly methodical and does not disrupt the system.
Sure, and I really do, I think most parents do too, appreciate how we have been on the I guess the leading edge of some of the not shutting down. We were in person with a brief exception. We've been on the leading edge of doing what's best for the kids, and I'm just still wondering why. So it sounds like there are some districts that there is disruption and some districts that there isn't disruption, is what you're telling me. And I'm wondering if you have any information as to what's the source of that? Why do some districts have disruption and some don't?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, Dave. I can tell you that I think what we know about our instructional model and that's what Alan spoke to, is that it is designed to draw students into the system. And that's what we've been doing all year, and we've been adjusting our staffing accordingly. So if in fact we were to make a pivot, we would and could potentially may see parents who choose to put their kids into a virtual environment, which means that more students would go into virtual, and we have not staffed that way, at least at the elementary level, since I want to say mid-year semester, if I'm not mistaken, Alan, is when we began to make those staffing changes. I also know that the blended environment that the secondary teachers are working in is not a comfortable environment. It's a very challenging environment, and we have less students in the virtual environment than we had at the beginning of the year, and I think teachers are appreciative of that. So a pivot at this time is just, I think, going to bring undue anxiety into the system and disruption. So I think it does negatively impact learning and instruction.
No, I guess I can see where it could. I'm just not sure why you think it will, but that's okay. We can move on.
Okay, we're going to continue on. The next slide is Summer Academy, and Conrad's here, and I know Diane Reinert's here, the assistant principal from the middle school, who helps co-runs the summer school program with Conrad. And the next few slides are specific to Summer Academy, because that's certainly part of our offerings, and it's something that has garnered a lot of attention.
So I was asked to just put together some main impacts if we were to change the mitigation strategies for the summer. And the bottom line is, if we changed something even 4 weeks ago, we'd be able to adjust. We would have enough time to go back and do all the things that need to be done. But Summer Academy preparations start in January, and it literally takes us 4 months every year to essentially build an entire school program to have it up and operational by the middle of June. And so to make a change now, with it about to start in 3 weeks, I don't know how we could cram 4 months of work into 3 weeks. It's just logistically not doable. I always try not to read PowerPoint points to people, but I know that's a little bit small and maybe not everybody can see, but I'll paraphrase. So I think the single biggest point to be made about Summer Academy is it's a totally voluntary program. If someone doesn't want to attend for whatever reason, they don't have to attend. And that's probably the biggest difference between a regular school year where we're operating under compulsory attendance. And that's a big key, because every single student and every single teacher who signed up for the Summer Academy this year was under the impression that there would be face coverings. And so it's not like there's any problem. We have now over 950 people signed up. I think it's 950, 940. And so that means everybody knew with the expectation, and we've got great turnout, great numbers that are very close to where we were the year before the pandemic. So we're ready to go. We're feeling really, really good about going. We can hit the ground running, and everything's in place. And if we change anything, all I can do is tell you, I don't know what will happen, but we will have to survey parents, we'll have to survey the staff, and we'll have to figure out what the impact will be. And if enough staff say, I don't want to do it, we would be jeopardizing the program, because I don't know that we could find staff in 2 weeks. So there's a whole lot of issues. The main bullet points are there. I don't want to go through every single one of them in detail. I'm happy to answer questions, but there's at least 8 areas of impact if we change things, and they're all highlighted there for you with those bullet points. Some of them certainly to greater degrees than others. Some of them may have almost no impact. It's just part of my job to make sure that the board is aware that these could be issues if we make any changes. I do think the change to no masks when outside is a great change. That'll be fine. That'll actually be a lot of our students and staff, because many of our classes do tend to get outside and stay outside as much as they possibly can. And not having the social distancing and the quarantining would also be favorable, and we can make that work in the summer, and that would be manageable and doable. But I do think the masks would be a major issue for us if that changes.
So Conrad, I have a question. Obviously, this doesn't say everything's going to go the bad way. It could go a good way too. You could get more enrollment. But I guess the bigger question is, how are we different than all the other businesses, schools, restaurants, churches, large organizations that flipped from mask required to mask optional in like a week without any kind of issues at all.
I can't answer for how other districts made decisions, Dave. I can tell you it would be an impact here. A lot of districts don't offer summer school, so for those districts, that's a non-issue for them. I don't know how they're doing it if they do offer it. Some districts have made the decision, and then they quickly flipped and reversed back and put the mitigation back in place. That's happened in at least a couple districts. So I can't comment for any other district. I can just tell you here, with our staff, the single biggest issue I'm concerned about is whether or not we would have enough teachers to run the program. And
Okay,
I can't tell you. Maybe no one would say that they
Yeah.
don't want to do it, Dave. I don't know. The time it takes to survey, though, that's at least, a week right there, too, also, is trying to just track that down. and
Well,
figure out-
right, yeah, if we do a survey, then that's really just a delay or really a vote to not make any changes.
That's why I said 4 weeks ago, we could have done it. We would have had the time to make a change.
Well, I don't know, there are a lot of businesses that didn't have any trouble making a change. I guess your point is that these things could happen, but I guess I don't understand, and I think you don't either, why, right?
No, we have staff that are definitely going to have reservations about
Okay, it's a staff
taking away
issue.
mitigation, and we have parents. I've had a number of parents commented, emailed me personally when they just heard it was being talked again, that they may pull their student if there's not masks in place.
Well, I guess I would be surprised if our dedicated educators would not show up for summer academy for that reason, given everything that's happened.
It's a huge struggle to get teachers through the summer, Dave, especially this summer. It's been our hardest one yet.
No,
I think
I
a lot
know.
of people are burned out. It's been a really demanding year. It's been tough to fill some of the positions this year.
Yeah, it's been a hard year. Absolutely.
Well, I think the other aspect to think of too is we have students that signed up, obviously thinking it's going to be masked, and there's no virtual option. So
Nope.
if we become unmasked, then we're not providing an offering to the entire student body. So I know it's like it's a double-edged sword, but we want to capture as many students as we can that want to come into summer academy. And by taking away the masks, we're going to lose a significant chunk or whatever that chunk may be.
We don't know. We'd lose
Yeah.
some. Maybe we'd pick some up. It's just, without asking, we don't know. The one thing for certain is we are having a great turnout. We have a great enrollment right now
Yeah,
with the way the program has been advertised. I
right.
mean, to be at around 950, that's an awesome number for us.
I would also like to add
Conrad,
that it seems it's very quickly adapted for the retailers, I think. When you go to a restaurant or something like that, that's adapted quickly, the grocery store. But large employers haven't really changed their policies at all. I work downtown Milwaukee, and it's still a ghost town, downtown Milwaukee. Our large employers are talking about bringing people back in June, July, August, those types of things, and mask requirements in place in the offices. So while I think it's changed, some of the retail centers, our approach as an educational institution is more like an office setting, where we're face-to-face with people and lots of people in the classrooms for long periods of times. And I think from the educational standpoint, that's more like an office setting. And I think those large employers are still reluctant to make masks optional.
Yeah, I think some of that might be due to the age of the people in the buildings too, though, Kevin, right? I mean, you don't have an office staffed with children who have got a 0.2% chance of being hospitalized because of the coronavirus. Whereas if you have an older person, you've got a much more significant risk.
Hey, Rick, were you going to say something there?
I was going to ask Connor a question, but first, to Kevin's comment, though, there's also a lot of office buildings that are going to be empty when this is over because numerous friends have told me that their companies are not going to send them back. They've found their virtual work. But Conrad, I have a question. I've had a lot of people call me and tell me that they're not participating in the summer academy because of the mask and their kids just can't do the mask. Do we have any idea of how many are on that side of the issue? We always talk about those who will cancel because of, not wearing masks, but how many, it's a lot, seems to be a lot more people than I thought are holding their kids out. And I want to make sure we're being fair to everyone. So.
I have no idea, Rick. All the emails I received were parents that were concerned about not having masks. So I had the opposite experience. The reality, though, is the 940 enrollment number would indicate that not too many people are holding out because that's a really good number.
And I think it's important
Yeah.
to remind us that the 940 includes, that's pulling all of our elementary students together from 3 different buildings. And our middle school students are coming into that mix as well as probably students from the private schools, as well as homeschooled students. So we're bringing in a mix of 940 kids that haven't been together through this entire time. And it was known the entire time that registration was open, that we were going to, masks were going to be required, and we still end up with 940 individuals signed up for summer school, which is fabulous when you look at the number. Last year we had 585, and then pre-COVID we had 1097, so 1,097. So we're not far off that, given that we have this mitigation measure in place.
I think a lot of the increase,
Rick, you can go.
Todd, I would think, though, that with all the parents concerned about the virtual learning and kids' scores and things dropping, that number would probably be in excess of our high year under the current climate.
right, you got a lot
So
of,
that's why I start questioning whether there's people holding out because of that.
Can I clarify something? I believe last July, when we first went with the mask mandate, we were going to reevaluate every 2 weeks. Is that everyone else's understanding as well?
Up to every 2 weeks, I believe.
Every
we
2
said,
weeks.
yeah.
I thought
We
it
didn't
was.
know. It was even to visit whether the schools stay open.
Right. So when I hear the conversation that we can't make a change because people expected the mask mandate to stay, that never was the expectation. It was always going to be reevaluated every 2 weeks. I'm hoping that we can keep in mind what's really best for the kids. And when I look back over the schools that have gone to mask optional, there's been no change in their cases. So I know that we have recommendations that are made, but we also need to keep in mind what's actually happening and make sure that we're keeping our kids' needs first.
Anyone else have anything for Conrad?
Thanks, Conrad.
Thanks.
thank you, Conrad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I did want to talk a little bit about the evolution of practices. This is a slide that the community has seen before. There's a lot of information on there, I get that, but it does just illustrate the fact that when we started the school year, we were in a fairly restrictive environment, and since then, we've continued to make decisions that have allowed our students more opportunity. And as we become familiar with the virus and mitigation measures and how to navigate in this environment, we are not as restrictive as we were at the beginning of the year. And you can see some of these changes that have occurred throughout the course of the year. And I think some of the largest one is certainly the mask optional outdoors, the contact tracing at 3 feet. Our rental facilities are now open, and so we are renting out our facilities. Instruction in grouping has occurred since probably the last 6-8 weeks. So we are making inroads, and we'll continue to make inroads to progress at a methodical pace that doesn't disrupt the system. A progression to the school year 21-22, I do want to just highlight some of what has occurred throughout this year. So on the far left column, you see the 2021 school year practices. Those are the practices that the board had put in place back in late summer. And then just most recently, the board, for the remainder of the year, made a change to the 3 feet of contact tracing from 6 feet. I spoke about that earlier, and the board also made the change for face covering optional for outdoors. So that's the environment we are in right now. To the third column from the left, you have summer school, and it should be noted that it's all in person, so there's no virtual. Last year we had a virtual. This school year we had a virtual option for our students throughout the year. This year for summer school, there is no virtual option. It's all in person. And so we are asking that the mask requirement continue for indoors at Summer Academy. And you'll note at the bottom there that given the number of students and what we know about the virus, that we are suggesting that the social distancing, the contact tracing, and the quarantining, that not be part of the mitigation measures during summer school. So what we are talking about is strictly just masking during summer school. And then on the far right-hand side, you can see the 21-22 school year. This information was made available to staff and parents in the community about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And you can see that we are basically back to a normal school year with the exception of providing an option for those who may have a medical condition and need an exemption to be in person. So this progression, I think, was done with the intention of continuously lessening the restrictions to get us to a point where we are fully in person in the fall in what would feel and look like a very normal school year. The next slide, recommendations, and these are the recommendations that follow the board action items A, B, C, and D. And so the first one is the face coverings. We are recommending, you can see the recommendation at the bottom of the slide, that continue with the current board-approved face covering expectation through June 11th. June 11th is the last teacher workday of the school year. So school's out on the 9th for students. Teachers are here on the 10th and the 11th. So we're asking that the face covering expectation continue through June 11th. Again, just about a dozen days left. And then that excludes the summer academy because we do have a recommendation for summer academy. The next slide is on contact tracing. This is language that all of you have seen before, and our recommendation is, again, you continue the board-approved 3 feet of contact tracing through June 11th, again, excluding summer school. The next recommendation is on social distancing. We again ask that this practice continue and we maximize social distancing as much as reasonable through June 11th, again, excluding summer academy. And quarantine practices, the same language, continue with this practice within 3 feet through June 11th. And the final recommendation would be summer academy, which is just a few reminders there, 1 through 4, but the recommendation would be require face coverings during the indoor 2021 summer academy activities. Those would be the recommendations from the administration that follow the recommendations on the agenda.
So when you say that continue with the current practices through June 11th and you're excluding summer academy, are you talking, what would that look like for, let's say, CBC renting out the field house or one of those groups?
So anything after June 11th, with the exception of summer school, would be all just optional face coverings, Chris. So any of the measures that we currently have in place would not be in place other than the optional face coverings. So a group who would want to rent our space on June 15th, for example, would be able to rent our space.
Okay.
So you're saying the face covering thing would apply only to the summer school after June 11?
Correct, just the summer school on the dates, which is, I think, June, I want to say June 21st to July 22nd, I believe, would be the summer academy. So it would just apply during that period of time, Dave.
So summer academy takes place at Webster exclusively, right?
Correct.
So in effect, the high school as well?
There's a weightlifting class, correct.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. I understand now, thank you.
So Todd, if I could back up real quick, maybe not quick, if you have a quick answer on it. You're recommending that we continue with face coverings. Is it, I guess the question is why? Is it because of the recommendations of, the health department in Nozaki, and then what if they change? Are we doing it on our own? Like you say, we're evaluating things on our own. What is the rationale? I think at the beginning of all this, it was stay safe. I'm not sure what, it was kind of hard to define what that meant because we're in, uncharted territory. But I think the data pretty much shows that people in our buildings are safe. If we're looking at hospitalization or serious illness or death from the virus. If you look back, looking now at the data, there's a more likely, people in our building are more likely to be hospitalized due to a bus accident or a sports injury or something like that. The other justification, I think, was to try to stop the spread or slow the spread of the virus. Again, that's kind of stopped with the vaccines and everything, and the kind of the the natural cycle of the virus. So what is the justification for continuing? Because we know that it's not good for kids to breathe their own snot and to breathe their own, exhaling their carbon dioxide. And there's been issues with instruction, obviously. So what is the justification? Because we want to kind of balance the harm against the benefit, right?
Correct. Are you specifically talking summer school, Dave?
I'm just saying generally at this point, given all we know.
I think there's similar issues that we are wrestling with. One, for the current school year, I think the disruption to learning, teaching and learning is significant.
Sure, that's a different issue, right? I get that.
11 days, I think that's a big issue. We're in the middle of assessing our students and gathering data. And as all of you have heard from parents, I've heard from parents too, and they're anxious and their kids are anxious. And this meeting this evening has created a wave of anxiousness and anxiety across the district. And so it's a distraction right now that I don't think is, I just don't think it's worth the squeeze to make the adjustment at this time. And I'm sorry I'm using that language. That's what comes to mind right now. But we know the disruption will be, I think, significant here. And in all fairness, we promised a particular model to our parents. We promised this model to our parents.
Well, I don't think we promised to what Ms.
So if we're
Betzel
going to
said.
make a change, I guess I would ask that we give them, in all fairness, an opportunity to make a change to the model. That's just for the school year, for the next 11 days.
Yeah, we're in a rapidly changing environment here, and I don't know that anyone. I mean, if things turned the other way, we wouldn't be hesitating to, close the buildings or whatever we had to do to take action. So going back to I guess my initial question is, why are the masks, why do we think that they're still good for the kids? In other words, we're trying to do everything, we're trying to do what's right for the kids.
Yeah.
And it sounds like I get, we want to avoid the disruption of, the current school year. That really doesn't have anything to do with this, specifics on what the masks are actually doing for the children. It's just a way to avoid conflict. So again, that's sort of the question for summer school then, too.
Yeah, I guess I would not get into a debate over the mask, how effective they are or not. I was handed a pile of studies this evening to hand out to the board, and I'm sure there's other piles of studies that would say something differently. We have not made our argument on whether the masks are effective or not. We've made our argument on disrupting the learning environment.
Okay. Thank you, Todd.
And if I could add a little bit, Dave, one of the things that I struggle with personally is I give a fair amount of weight to medical professionals for medical advice. And in doing so, we've heard from pediatricians, the CDC, the state health department, the local county health department, and in talking to various practitioners in our community. And most of them, not all, but most of them believe our current approach is correct. So for medical advice, I don't think any of us are overly trained. As people point out in emails to us, we aren't medical professionals. But I listen to medical professionals. I don't give them 100% weight, but I do listen to them. And the preponderance of discussions has always centered to the same thing for various reasons, but that our current approach is worth continuing with. So that's where I give it my weight personally.
So yeah, I agree that they can be a good source. However, I've had people approach too, and when you probe and ask the deeper questions, the answers aren't there. There's no reason for it. It boils down a lot of times to personal opinion. And one of the people that spoke, one of the doctors that spoke the other last meeting, I think, it was a purely emotional plea, and there was nothing behind it. And I think as you dig deeper into it, you'll find that it's 50-50, and there's nothing definitive. I mean, I want to get this right. I think we all do, right?
Right.
But I do understand the deferral, and maybe I'm a little different because of my background, what I do for a living. But I always ask the questions why.
Yeah, I don't think we're at 50-50, at least in my discussions with people. It's 90-10, 80, 85-15 or so. And it's,
We need to be quiet. You guys can talk during the public comment. You'll have plenty of time. You all have your opportunity. Thank you. Rick, did you have anything you wanted to ask or add? It looks like we're done with the slides here.
Just briefly to Kevin's comment, I sat next to a doctor on the plane to Dallas, where I am now, and Texas has been open. They were the first to open in the nation, and he was explaining to me there has been no change in their schools or anything since they've removed masks. So I guess medical professionals, it depends, I guess, on where you are too, and what you're seeing. That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else? Todd, are you ready to move on?
No, that's the presentation. Just a reminder, all this information is available on our website for the public to access. And I don't think anyone from the administrative team had anything else to add.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Then, at this time, we'll move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. I just want to remind, if we could just refrain from clapping and cheering during that time, give everyone the opportunity to speak and be heard. So first, I'm going to read a disclaimer, and I have a list of people, and the clock's going to start when the first person talks. So if someone, Brenda, if you could perhaps keep track of that, and if we need to extend it more than the 60 minutes that Mrs. Padberg motion addressed, then we will, I would imagine. So I'll read the disclaimer. Any district, staff member, resident, or parent of a student enrolled in the district may address the board during the public comment section. For this special board meeting, public comment may only be regarding the agenda items under Section 3 on the agenda, under recommendations. In the past, the State Attorney General issued guidance on how governmental bodies, such as school boards, should conduct the public comment portions of their meetings. This guidance was given to assist governmental bodies in avoiding violation of the state's open meeting laws. The essence of the guidance is that unless the topic being brought to the board by the public is listed on that meeting's agenda, no significant discussion can be held on that item. Instead, that topic may be listed as an item on a future meeting agenda whereby discussion could then be held. The reason for this guidance is not to limit open discussion, but rather to ensure that all interested parties have equal opportunity to participate in the discussions with the full school board. We on the school board encourage community input, and we want to hear from your constituents. However, we take the state's open meeting laws seriously and will follow the guidelines as outlined by the State Attorney General. Therefore, if an item is listed on tonight's agenda, open dialogue may occur between the individual from the public and board members. Per school board policy 0144.2, the board will respect confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable laws. This includes, but is not limited to, information under current or imminent litigation and or student-specific information per policy 8330. If your comment is not listed on tonight's agenda and you want to have discussion regarding the topic, you're encouraged to contact the district superintendent and request that your item be listed on a future meeting agenda. As always, you are also encouraged to discuss any issue with individual board members on a one-on-one basis outside the meeting setting. Please make your comments to the board and not to any individuals in the audience. As per school board policy 167.3, each statement made by a participant should be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that this is a public meeting and we ask everyone to address another with the courtesy and respect you would like to receive in return. When you approach the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. If you are under the age of 18 or are a student of Cedarburg schools, please only state your first name. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed via the district's YouTube channel and will be posted on the district's website. And we'll have a timer here, and That will go off at 3 minutes, and then we will stop each individual's comment. Microphone.
My name is Connie Kincaid. I'm at N75W7255 Linden Street in Cedarburg. Board members, tonight's special meeting was called to consider the mitigation measures currently in place for our students and staff for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. Summer Academy is part of the 2020-2021 school year. I've communicated in emails a request to prioritize the advice and recommendations of the staff members that organize Summer Academy, as well as the efforts made on the part of both parents and students in planning for the transition to in-person learning in the fall. Thus far, at least 2 rounds of communications have been sent to families regarding at least one measure that would be in place for Summer Academy. Mask wearing is optional outdoors and required indoors. This communication helped to inform the decision-making process for families. There are, of course, several opportunities for learning throughout our county. When looking at these options and considering the needs of my son, I felt that CSD's Summer Academy would be his best option for a successful learning environment. Just as I placed faith in our educators to provide an exceptional virtual experience for Summer Academy last year, I have faith in Mr. Farner and Mr. Reinert's abilities to assess the needs of staff and students alike as they planned for this year's in-person Summer Academy. Tonight, I'm requesting that you take their input into account as to what would provide the highest level of success for this year's Summer Academy to move forward. I'm also requesting that you keep in mind the needs of students that depend on Summer Academy's offerings to transition into in-person learning in the fall, and the planning that has taken part to ensure those opportunities occur. Do I have a tiny bit of time left? Yes. Sorry, I'm not supposed to direct. A question was asked as to what makes Cedarburg different. And I can only speak for myself and my family. I'm sure everyone has different reasons. But one of the areas that Summer Academy differs is that it offers an opportunity for students that do have special needs to have support. It also offers the ability for students to see teachers that they will see in the fall in a class over the summer. And that is a big thing. If you're transitioning from a year plus of virtual learning to in-person in the fall, and you don't have enough paras on staff and support services available, your parents need to fill in that gap and find ways to help their students succeed. So for our family, CSD is different in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Catherine B.
Dr. Catherine Burrows, W78N418 Ridgeway Lane. I am here begging that we continue to require masks in a school setting until at least all students are at least eligible for vaccines. I believe in science, and I believe in masks. Members of the board, I'm providing each of you with some of the many peer-reviewed trial results demonstrating their benefits, as I know there has been some difficulty for some of you to find those appropriate references. They're at Mr. Bignacki's side right now. I would ask that everyone in this room take a step back and look at the big picture. Forget about arguing about masks. Forget about making school board decisions for purposes of subsequent re-election. Forget about it. Take a step back. We are lucky. We are privileged to live in the USA. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, and yet we are doing well as a country because these measures have been in place. We have access to vaccines if we so choose. We have access to health care should we need it. Others aren't so lucky. Other countries are desperate for vaccines. We have a surplus. People in India are dying because they don't have access to health care, or they do have access, but there aren't enough supplies or meds or even oxygen to help them. Doctors have to go against everything they've learned and their innate need to help all patients, and instead are having to prioritize patients, knowing those very decisions will result in some people dying. Those doctors are being forced to look in the eyes of their patients and choose who lives and who dies. Again, we have access to those very things, and what are we doing in this room? We're ignoring how privileged we are, and we're arguing about whether or not we should follow science and follow the rules. We all need to check our privilege. Imagine for me, your spouse, your parent, your child is sick, desperately needs help, and you have nothing you can do except sit by their side and pray for a miracle. Now imagine being that same person, seeing other people take their access and their privilege for granted. Imagine how you'd feel seeing other people trying to skirt the rules when all you want is help. We are so close to being done with COVID. If we remove the mask mandate too soon, teachers and staff might resign in an already tight job market, and a child could get sick. How would you feel if you played a role in a child getting sick? What's the litigious risk in this? We've been in this for about 14 months. We probably only have a few months to go. Please continue to require masks until all students can be vaccinated and adequately protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron S.
Hi, Dr. Aaron Schmidt, 1680 Swallow Drive. So edit this a little bit. To answer most of your questions, Mr. Greer, why we're doing this is because the vaccine is not available to all those who want to take it. That's the simple answer. At the last meeting, you had physicians from a range of specialties present facts and data in support of the mask mandate. You have a stack of it right there, but if you're not going to read it, it's not going to do any good. Real science supports masks. Googling masks don't work will yield lots of pseudoscience, like the Stanford study sent to me by Ms. Netzel. This wasn't even a study, provided no facts or data, and was disavowed by Stanford. Now, why would someone falsely use the Stanford name? To make their trash more convincing. Mr. Leach, you said these stupid things lower your oxygen. So are you telling me that they're so effective that not even oxygen or carbon dioxide can get through, but viruses can? And Mr. Creer, you said, why should we require masks when not even the CDC will do that? Last I checked, the CDC doesn't make laws. Point to other schools that have removed their mask mandates and then tell me exactly how many COVID tests are they actually performing. You can't find positive cases if you aren't looking for them. If by this point you still question the effectiveness of masks and don't understand peer-reviewed data or the scientific method, then I question your qualifications to make decisions regarding not only the health and safety of our children, but also the direction of their science curriculum. These decisions should be ideology-free, as your campaign promised, right, Ms. Netzel? That includes your own and the special interest groups that you are a member of. This is the fastest vaccine rollout in history. Smallpox, polio, hepatitis, all these took decades, if not centuries, to develop an effective vaccine. We have become disappointingly impatient. Everyone wants a return to normalcy, especially me, and we are almost there. But things aren't normal just because you demand they be. Any argument to ditch masks in the unvaccinated now is purely selfish one, not based on science or the greater good. And your right to your personal freedom ends when it impacts the health and safety of others. In World War II, which killed less Americans than COVID, our country was asked to fight to ration supplies, gas, and food. Real patriots did this because it was the right thing to do. What was asked of us? To get a vaccine, to wear a little piece of cloth on our face for a while until all our children could be safely vaccinated. And how did our great patriots respond? By hoarding toilet paper and ammo and refusing to wear masks. It is pathetic and disgraceful, and we will not be remembered fondly. We need to protect those at risk, not endanger them. Many want to take the vaccine but can't quite yet. Why remove the masks immediately before they can protect themselves? If you vote to remove masks, then you are telling those students under 12 at high risk that they have to risk their lives to enter your schools because you couldn't wait a few more months. So keep your politics away from the health of our children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick K.
Last week I walked into a grocery store. I had a mask on.
Excuse me, we'll
I'm
start the
sorry.
time over. You just got to state your name and address, sorry.
I can't do that part. Rick Karshna, West 61, North 840 Arbor Drive, Cedarburg. Last week I walked into a grocery store. I had my mask on as usual. When I entered, no one was wearing masks. So I went back outside and I looked at the door and the sign was gone. I had been so accustomed to it, wasn't even used to looking around to see if the mask thing was still there. Walking around felt a little bit unfamiliar, just like if the kids show up to school without wearing masks. But it felt liberating. It felt good to see people talking, laughing, shopping, without that thing covering their face like this. Single shoppers, couples, families with children, all going about their business. It was a sign of normal. It was good. This Friday, I went to a establishment and saw a blues band playing. The place was packed. Outside setting, sure, but everybody was there having a good time. There's some children there too. No masks. People, there's no social distancing going on at all. Same thing on Saturday at a beer garden. Families, children, there was a wedding party there that took up about 3 tables. It was packed. Kids there running around, going down by the river, playing around. It was fun. I'm a runner. I go up and down Washington Avenue every day, there and back. I see kids playing, kids on skateboards, all up and down. I'm sure everybody sees that all the time. There's no social distancing going on with these kids. You go over to Cedar Creek Park or any other park, it's the same thing. They're not social distancing. They're not wearing masks. As the weekend, a quick look at businesses showed very few signs requiring masks. I don't think any restaurants on Washington Avenue did. I was at a couple of them also over the weekend. One said masks are optional, but that was the only time that I saw anything with masks. In Cedarburg and Ozaukee County, the mask issue has been resolved. The crisis that caused us to go wearing masks is over. Every adult in this room and every adult that works for the school district has had the opportunity to be fully vaccinated by now. We all know what the numbers say about transmission rates for children and illness rates among children. I don't need to go into that. We all know what that is. We've heard that over and over again. One board member who appears to be pro-mask said he talked to several people he respects, and all of them thought they should wear the masks. I wonder if he sought out opinions of those who might differ with his opinion. You learn by talking to people that you might disagree with. Earlier, there were questions about whether or not we've looked at other school boards and districts, Waukesha, Cedar Grove, Belgium, just up the street. Many others that have done away with the mask mandates. Disruptions, parents pulling their kids out of school. We don't have any of that. No one did that. Any board members that want to continue with the masks call up their counterparts? Got the Wisconsin School Board
That's time.
Association.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim M.
Hello, my name is Tim McGuire, 359 West Thornapple Lane in Grafton, but part of the Cedarburg School District. In my opinion, it is time for the Cedarburg School District to eliminate its mask mandate, make it optional for those who feel the need to wear a mask. The list of Wisconsin schools who have made such decisions is long and well known to the educational community. So are the statistics that show schools are not a significant source of spreading the virus. We have lived through many threats to our health and safety. Life on this planet has never been a safe harbor, nor will it ever be. So why has there been such an out-of-control reaction to COVID-19? Perhaps to do with the 24-hour news cycle, social media, politicization of every aspect of our lives? Just a guess on my part. The school board, teachers, and parents need to block out all the noise and focus on what is best for our children. Let them enjoy the learning environment. Teach them not to live in fear. They have suffered the most from a virus that threatens them the least. They are powerless to fight back. Up to this point, the adults in the room have somewhat let them down. This attitude of survival at all costs must change. As educated adults, we know the best way to protect ourselves, but protecting ourselves should never be based on damaging our children. Our survival as a society is not worth having unless it can be had by honorable and peaceful means. Abusing our children certainly does not fit that criteria. Elected leadership must make a decisions that are not solely based on political consultants, surveys, or fundraising issues. These influences are often used to avoid direct responsibility for difficult decisions and can demonstrate weak leadership. Survey questions are usually written to obtain desired outcomes. Consultants' opinions are often designed to support desired outcomes. Remember, consultants are selling a product and looking for their next job. I was glad to hear some comments made earlier about the HVAC system in the schools. Yet, if we have hospital quality air in our schools, why are we forcing people to wear masks? If they want to wear one, fine. Everybody has their individual freedom. But to force, that's something else again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lena? Lena, I'd like to remind you just to state your name and not your last name and not your address, please.
My name is Lena. I am a freshman here at Cedarburg High School, and I am speaking tonight, yet again, in favor of keeping the mask mandate. I'm just going to come right out and ask, why in the world are we here? 11 days. And we're done. That's it. And we have summer school 2 weeks after that. We're not ready. Back in November, we started our girls' basketball season. Requirements being social distancing, contact tracing, and of course, masks. My entire team for around 3.5 months for practices and games wore masks the entire time while playing. Not once did someone have to be pulled out for having difficulty breathing or fainting. And even when we played other teams that refused to wear them properly, we kept them on all the same. Even sitting on the bench, we wore masks, except to take water breaks. So your accusations about children having difficulty breathing while walking around school is absolutely ridiculous. Where are these studies coming from? The ones that say masks limit oxygen, or saying that they weaken your immune system. There was even a claim that surgeons and nurses don't wear masks to protect the patient, but for themselves, saying that because it only protects them, it should be optional. No. Surgeons and nurses wear them to get hair, or to not get hair or bodily fluids inside of another person's organs. I have senior friends who are scared that they can't finish out the year in person because if masks are taken away, then they're not going to risk their health to go. We've done so well this year. Why would we change? I don't know if you know all India's condition right now, but they're dying. I have a friend in New Delhi. Her uncle died a few weeks ago due to COVID, and not long after, she started having symptoms and ended up being offline for over a week. Do you know what it's like to go days without hearing from someone you hold so closely and wonder if they're still alive? Do you know why they are in that state right now? Because they tried to go back to normal too soon. Because they opened things up again, which is exactly what you're trying to do. I don't care if there's a vaccine. Our elementary students can't even get it. Do you really hold our staff's and students' lives so low as to jeopardize our health and well-being? For the rest of the school year, and for summer school as well, keep COVID precautions. They cause no harm to our school. Think about us. Think about our immunocompromised population who have siblings as students or even parents as teachers or staff who can't afford to get sick. Not just in-person cases, but those who have to stay home. Think about your students whose mental health couldn't handle another shutdown. And also, think of your teachers. Think about their jobs and their health. They put so much into teaching and caring for our students. If you're that confused on why to keep the mask mandate, it's not broken. Don't fix it. Oh, and also it's not child abuse. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael M.
Hello, my name is Michael Maher. Address is W69 and 425 Fox Point Avenue in Cedarburg. After being home since March of 2020, my 6th grade and 1st grade virtual kids were very much looking forward to attending the last day of school celebrations in person. My wife and I were okay with that, given the success that CSD has had this year, with all of the efforts to stay safe in order to stay open. We were also planning on summer academy for both of our kids, based on the decisions made at the April school board meeting. Our children are 11, 6, and 3 years old. They don't have the option to be vaccinated at this time. The CDC has made it clear that the mask change guidance is for those who have been fully vaccinated. The county health department is recommending that schools keep their policies in place and continue to follow the CDC guidelines. So why is there a special meeting tonight to discuss this? In our opinion, it would only be appropriate to discuss changes to current policy when all kids have the chance to get vaccinated. My wife and I have lived in the area for almost 20 years now, and we both have been regular volunteers active in our community. This whole discussion has made my wife so upset that she would like to move. Quite frankly, it's embarrassing that we have to keep explaining to our kids that certain members of our school board don't understand science or care enough about our students and staff to make the best decisions. If you don't want what is in the best interest of our students and staff, you really shouldn't be on the school board. Administration has laid forth plans of how to best go forward for summer. At this point, do you want to risk losing teachers and staff that could jeopardize the entire summer academy? You are not educators, and you are not infectious disease specialists. Your job as a school board member is to listen to those who are experts in their fields in order to make an informed decision. If the current policy is removed, then we will cancel our kids' enrollment from summer academy and possibly for the next school year. We understand the desire to get back to normal, but we are still in a pandemic. Our employers are taking this situation very seriously. Most employees where I work won't have the option of going back to the office until sometime in June. Even then, it will be voluntary and will only be 2 days a week to keep building capacity at 50%. Those who decide to go back will be required to wear a mask in the office regardless if they are vaccinated or not. This school board needs to make smarter decisions and worry about the health of our kids and staff. If wearing a mask is the worst thing you have dealt with, your privilege is showing. I've said this before, and I will say it again. Do the right thing tonight and do nothing.
Thank you. Ann M.
I'm Ann Murphy. I live at 781 Coip Road, Cedarburg. Thank you for having this special session to review the current mask requirement. We all agree there is no shortage of data and science for either side, and much of this has been shared with you already. One thing that has been not talked about is the development of children's immune systems. An article from September of 2019 in US News says a growing body of research is showing that microbes, which are microscopic organisms such as bacteria, fungus, and viruses, and dirt are crucial for our well-being. Research indicates that early exposures to a variety of microbes may help lower the risk of developing conditions like asthma and allergies. Dr. Christopher Carpenter, section head of infectious diseases and international medicine at Beaumont Hospital in Michigan, said, "Our fear of germs has pushed us too far into trying to keep everything safe and sterile. That extreme is harming us more than it's helping us. And another article from 2015 in Today stated, and another reason people don't get sick? Constant exposure to the over 200 different kinds of cold viruses, for example, builds their immunity, said Dr. Amy Crawford-Foucher, Director of WPIC Inpatient Primary Care at UPMC Department of Family Medicine. People who are socially connected in terms of positive relationships have fewer colds, said Dr. John Tempe, a University of Wisconsin Health Family Medicine physician and chair of the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention's Advisory Committee on immunization practices. They don't just report fewer colds, they have fewer colds. Many districts locally have gone mask optional, effective immediately. Some locally have been the whole year. I would point out that these families live here in our communities. As the data from the school nurse was made clear at the board meeting in April, the extremely small, possibly transmitted cases between students in the schools could not rule out that they acquired the virus from the community, as the nurse noted. I reviewed the draft slides that were going to be presented tonight and were presented, and it was clear that data and science or the health of children is not what is holding the board back from making masks optional. It is clear that the board is only concerned with demands and agenda of the teachers' union, claiming that they would lose a large number of teachers if they went mask optional, even though 80% have been vaccinated. Why are we not hearing that large amounts of teachers are losing or leaving these other schools that have gone mask optional? Because it is not happening. So I ask you, what is the reason then for keeping kids subjected to this hazard? If you're going to claim this is for the safety of the students, then I need to ask you, how are you to keep each child safe? Whose child is more important? Is it the child who may be immune compromised, or is it the child who's having anxiety attacks from masking? Are you trying to keep some children safe while the more children are left to develop social, emotional, and or physical harm from wearing a mask? My child
That's time.
matters. My
Thank you.
children's health matters.
Thank you. Deb, can you please refrain from clapping? Thank you. Deb, I believe you're not here. I got an email. Okay, then we'll move on to Elizabeth C.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Charland. I live at 1602 Skyline Drive, Cedarburg. Mom, I can breathe free. Mom, I love being able to see my teacher's face when she's talking. Mom, I can hear the quiet kids in class. Mom, I love being able to smile at people. These are statements that my 7-year-old daughter has told me over the past month since masks were made optional at her school, St. Paul Lutheran in Grafton. We pulled her from Thorson Elementary last year when we didn't trust the Cedarburg School District would remain open and have optional mask policies. Clearly, it was the right choice for our family, but we hope to return to Cedarburg schools in the future. Mr. Bugnacki, you kept saying that removing the mask requirement would be a disruption or a distraction. For my daughter, removing the mask removed a distraction. Cedarburg children deserved the option not to wear a mask the final days of the school year and at summer academy. Per Mr. Bugnacki, 80% of staff have been fully vaccinated by the end of May, with 100% of staff been that have had the opportunity to do so. Per Mr. Conrad Farner, HR Director, if masks are made optional for summer academy, staff and parents would have to be surveyed to see how many would still participate, and the entire program would need to be reevaluated. Mr. Farner is threatening that if masks are made optional, there won't be sufficient staff to offer summer academy and that no changes can be made because the program is advertised as masks required. Pardon my language, but this is complete BS. From theme parks to stores to schools, mask policies are changing at the drop of a hat and no one is being surveyed prior to policy changes. Have you heard of a major teaching exodus at Cedar Grove, Belgium schools where they were made optional a month ago? Germantown voted in April to make masks optional at their summer school program. Have you heard, Mr. Farner, about all the teachers quitting there? Please stop using "the teachers will quit" as an excuse to keep these dirty rags on our healthy children's faces. Members of the board, thank you so much for your time and effort that you have committed during this trying school year. We, the parents, did not elect Dr. Fauci, the CDC, or the Washington Ozaki Health Department to make choices for our students. We elected you. When masks were on the agenda at last month's board meeting, Cedarburg would have been on the forefront of the state if the board had voted to go mask optional. But since then, hundreds of schools have gone mask optional, and there haven't been outbreaks, school shutdowns, or mass teacher departures. Let's join the hundreds of other public and private schools who have given parents and students the choice and have shown us with the data that this is a safe option. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer C. Jennifer C. Michelle S.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Michelle Stanley. I live at W57 and 494 Hilbert Avenue in Cedarburg. I had something prepared tonight to say, but I'm just going to veer off from that a little bit and just kind of address some of the other things that have been said. I want to make this point clear that I don't think that every parent in Cedarburg is going to want to get their children vaccinated for COVID. I would caution this type of thinking that once all the kids are vaccinated, we'll be okay. None of the shots have been tested for carcinogenicity, mutagenesis, or infertility. And they certainly haven't been tested for long-term effects in the pediatric population. In the next few years, we may have a whole generation of even sicker kids with higher rates of allergies, autoimmune illness, neurodevelopmental illness, cancer, and infertility down the road. I don't think that we want those things for our children. So I'm a mother of 3 and a registered nurse. My background is in pediatrics and children and adolescent psychiatric nursing. We've talked a lot about how masks are really ineffective against viruses. I mean, the viral particles are so small, they can go right through it. I'm sure we've all heard that before. You know, when we're talking about masking children and masking healthcare practitioners, it's completely different. We're talking about expecting children to wear a mask for 6 to 8 hours every day. It is affecting them. It's affecting them a lot. I've heard from another district school nurse that a child vomited in her mask, a kindergartner, and she was too afraid to take it off on her way to the health room. She was afraid she was going to get in trouble. That is so sad. We're not looking at the psychosocial and psychological effects that masking is having on children. We're talking a lot about the effects of transmission and infection and all of those things, but according to the CDC, children have a 0.00003% chance of getting sick from COVID. It doesn't make any sense. And Anthony Fauci himself said that asymptomatic carriers are not shown to be transferring airborne viruses. So it's mostly the symptomatic people that are transmitting viruses, not the asymptomatic. So children are not to be looked at as carriers or sick. We need to look at lessons learned in history, where we're wrongly telling people that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So is there anyone else that would like to speak in the audience? All right. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Michelle Rischel. I'm at 516 West Highland Drive in Grafton in the Cedarburg School District. I wasn't going to talk tonight, but nobody has brought up what I would have talked about, so I did not bring my notes, but you have all received my email in the past that basically the
masks as well as the vaccine have only been approved by the FDA for emergency use authorization. Under emergency use laws, you cannot mandate a mask or a vaccine without informed consent. You can go to americasfrontlinedoctors.com and look at the Legal Eagle Team information that has all of this information there with cited references. Also at that website, you can find the the filing by a team, a legal team with the America's Frontline Doctors as the plaintiff that is asking for a temporary restraining order on the vaccine for children under 16 because it is experimental and we do not want to use our children as lab rats. But my basic point is it's the law. The law is that you cannot mandate this without parental informed consent. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all you're doing. Thanks for having the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Anyone next? Please only state your first name, not your last name or your address.
Hi, my name is Whit. Please unmask us and save our smiles. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in the audience? Anyone at all? Oh, sorry.
I'm Ed Katursky, 7932 Pioneer Road, Cedarburg. I wanted to summarize some of the science, I guess. We learned last time, and we've heard over and over again, on the exposure and the contact tracing is based on distance and time. That comes from an estimated dosing of the virus that requires you to come in contact with or breathe a certain amount. And the CDC or somebody came up with an average for everybody of 6 feet in 15 minutes. We learned that our HVAC system here changes the air 6 to 10 times per hour. So that means within the school, you're never going to get to that dosing level that would cause a transmission. And I think we've seen that bear out by the low number of cases transmitted. And I think the HVAC system is far more effective and far bigger factor in all this than masks, especially just simple cloth masks. As far as people who are still concerned beyond that, you can get high quality masks that will protect the wearer, and it doesn't affect everybody else and making everybody else wear a mask. If we're talking about following the science, back at the beginning of the school year when we decided to open, I read a number of the documents that you had posted that you used as evidence and science on how to open safely. One of those documents was the American Association, or the Association of Pediatrics, American Pediatric Association, that's what it was, APA. In that document, and in their recommendations, children should not wear masks and had no need to wear masks. But adults and those immunocompromised, they recommended to go ahead and wear masks. So there's plenty of science out there on both sides of this. And it wouldn't be so political if you could have a debate between doctors and between people who are knowledgeable without half the debate being shut down. So it became political from the very beginning. And there was not much science in any of it, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
It's 8:05, so we're under the 60 minutes.
Only state your first name, please.
Hi, my name is Lessa, and I would like to keep the mask mandate because I do not want to go virtual. And the COVID vaccine is still out there. Even if you're vaccinated, you can still get sick and die. It does, even with the vaccine, it doesn't protect you all the way. So I would like to keep the mask mandate because they help a lot. Even if some people disagree, they do. I would like just to keep the mask mandate.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Anyone else? All right, then we will end the public comment portion of the meeting. I move that we take a 5-minute recess just to use the facilities, stretch legs. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call. Padberg.
Aye.
Netzel.
Aye.
Leach.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Creer.
Aye.
Reimer. Aye. Unanimous. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. on. But in there, there's also the items that the board might take action on. So the first item, A, is the board may take action regarding the face covering mandate for the remainder.
Yes, these are the minutes from the prior board meeting, and I believe that was the 27th. And the motion at that time was to approve the proposed CSD face covering mandate for the remainder of the 2021 school year, with the exclusion of on-school grounds, and this would include the Summer Academy program. So face covering mandate in place for the remainder of the school year, including Summer Academy, and the motion passed. So that's the current mandate that's in place. And there was another motion as well, and that was to change the contact tracing to 3 feet for the remainder of the 2021 school year, which includes Summer Academy, and that also passed 6-0. Those are the two expectations that we have in place at this time.
So one was a contact tracing, so that's item B, so we'll address that next. I'm going to ask you to say that again later, but is everyone clear on the current face covering mandate? Rick, I haven't checked in with you for a while. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I think that was one motion, not two separate motions, though, at the last board meeting.
Okay.
It included all of those facts in one motion.
Can you say that again, Rick?
The last board meeting, that motion included all of those items in one motion. It wasn't two separate motions.
Yeah. No, I understand that. He read it, but I just wanted, as we're going through each item as they're listed for action, for us to understand what the current policy is.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, mask covering, any discussion?
Yeah, I guess I would like to address something that I heard tonight from the public, and just to, I guess, clarify, I'm not sure why people have this impression, but personally, when I'm doing research on the effectiveness of masking and other mitigation techniques, I don't go to Google, I don't Google masks don't work and things like that. What I've done is, for the last year and a half, I've done a lot of independent research. I've talked to numerous doctors, nurses, epidemiologists. Once in a while, I would get somebody saying, like we did at the last meeting, that they had peer-reviewed studies showing that masks are effective. And when you review those reports or whatever they send, it's never been a peer-reviewed study showing that masks are effective. So I kind of go back to what I said, what I explained about my viewpoint at the last meeting, is that I think as a board, we have a duty we have the burden to show why these drastic measures are required, why they should be done, and they should be done if the benefit outweighs the harm. And like it's for the same reasons I mentioned at the last meeting, I don't see it. The harms from the masks are evident, and even some scientific studies show them. The effectiveness of, other than maybe slowing the spread, possibly, is not proven. And given the way things have changed just in the last couple of weeks, we're in a different world than we were even 2 weeks ago, where, for the sake of argument, if the masks worked to protect people from getting or spreading the coronavirus, we're basically the only institution that these children are going to attend that requires such things. If they go to the grocery store, they go to church, they go to a restaurant, there's no mask. So even if they worked to stop the virus, I don't know that in this situation they would do much, if anything, even if assuming that. Given all that, I think, Todd, you said your justification or your reasoning or support for this is to avoid the disruption. And like I said at the last time, I don't think it's the best policy reason to to do anything, to quell disruption. But it's a reality during the rest of the school year with 11 days left. So this is my long way of making a motion to accept the superintendent's proposal with the exception of making masks optional at summer school.
I would second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Padberg,
Nay.
Netzel,
Aye.
Leach.
Aye.
That's an aye from Leach, correct?
Correct.
Kennedy,
Nay.
Creer,
Aye.
Reimers, a nay. Motion fails due to tie. Does anyone else have a motion on item A, 3A?
I guess I'd like to make a motion to talk about having masks be optional when children are seated indoors during summer academy at 3 feet apart.
I would second that.
Can you say that again, Kate, just so we're clear?
So rather than across the board, mask optional at summer school, it would be masks could be optional when children are seated at their desks indoors.
Okay.
Todd, is that something that, I don't know what the social distance looks like for summer school, for the classes that are in the building? Because I know there's a lot that are outside the building.
So your question is?
Like, what's the likeliness of that?
Well, I can tell you that our normal middle school population is about 650. And when we're over there now, they're just about elbow to elbow. So we're going to put in another 150 kids. And I guess it's that we're not going to have a lot of social distancing.
Yeah.
How many of
Is the
those,
motion for
how many of
summer
those
school?
are outside?
I'd have to
Isn't it
ask
summer school?
Conrad or Dan to respond to that.
Was the motion for summer school
Or was
only,
it for the school year?
or the school year?
I had said summer school.
Yeah, she said.
All right, so then, does that change your answer, Todd, as far as the distancing at Webster?
No, we will have more
We'd
kids.
have more kids.
We'll have more kids
Oh,
in
you'll
the
have
building
more,
during
okay.
summer school, correct?
Right, but some of those classes are outdoors, correct?
I believe they are, but even with those classes outside, we'll still have more students in the building than we do during the normal school year.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote. Padberg,
Nay.
Netzel,
Aye.
Leach,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Nay.
Creer,
Aye.
Reimers, a nay. Motion fails due to tie. Is there any other motions on item 3A?
Todd, if we couldn't do 3 feet, can we do 6? I'm just kidding.
For summer school, you're talking, Dave, right?
He's being facetious.
I was joking.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's joke.
I would like
The
to
lead
make,
balloon on that one.
I would like to make a motion that we continue with the current board-approved face covering expectation through June 11th, 2021, and include that in the summer academy.
I would second that. And just, I think too, when we think about this, like, I know we have both sides, and I know it's frustrating because we want to kind of get to that point, and we're going to be there in the fall. And so we have, 30 days between summer school and the end of the school year. And so when we came as a district, we were in front of the line when it came to staying open with the option to be virtual. A lot of people were starting 100% virtual. And we were all on board, right? People wanted to be in person. They wanted that option to be in person and wear the masks. Our goal was to stay safe, to stay open. And I think we did that. We did that successfully. Our goal was to do that through the school year. And that was a commitment that we would review this and then also look to commit to the school year. So I think that's, when we look at this, let's get the school year finished out. We got about 30 days all in between the school year and summer. And in the fall, it is optional. So I think, certainly take take that for what it's worth of, we're listening, we want to get back to that stage of normalcy, and kind of what Kevin said earlier. You know, when you look at, you know, office spaces where people are closer together, restaurants, grocery stores, theme parks, not applicable in that case. There's a social distance aspect involved and or masks. And so I think we're kind of staying that course, and when we come back in the fall, we can get back to that kind of state of normalcy. So I second that.
Kevin, can you state that again? Because from the way I heard it, it's not changing anything that we're doing right now, right?
Right, it's to continue at the current board-approved face covering expectation through June 11th, 2021, and including that expectation in the summer academy.
Oh, you're saying the recommendation as stated on the slide?
Right.
Okay, because that's not the same.
Right, it excluded it, but I want to include it because to be clear with what the expectation is.
Adjusted to include it.
I guess one of the things I'm coming back to is what changes between June and August? If our numbers are what they are and we have evidence of no transmission in schools with and without masks, what's going to be different on July 31st?
I don't think we have any evidence of not having masks in the school since we've been with masks the entire year. We don't have in our school district any.
But I have a number of schools. I mean, I can list what I have, and there's many more every day that are doing it. I did speak with 2 board members from Waukesha. Not only do they not have any more cases, they have fewer cases, and they don't have the issues with the teachers that I know people are worried about. There are a number of other districts, and I'm not going to list them all again. I'd be happy to share with you the information that's out there, but what is literally going to change? And so if there are certain reasons we're keeping them now, what's the argument to not keep them in fall?
I could list a few of them. For instance, the calendar situation, where the people, if they're young enough now, they can get the vaccine if they're at the right ages, but they need the 2 vaccines and the time period in between and then the 2 weeks. To get that gets us to the end of the school year. So to do it immediately would undercut those people who are waiting for their second vaccine or to start the vaccine program. I looked at the county's website last night, and I think it said 14.8% of people 15 and up had their, 15 to 19, I think it was, had their at least one vaccine, about 14.8%. And somebody mentioned maybe a lot of people don't want it for their children. That's totally fine. I'm fine with that. But I want to make sure those parents who do want it for their children have a chance to get it for their children and to have it be successful. And to do that, you need the 2 vaccines and the time period in between and then the 2 weeks after that. So that's why it's getting us into the summer months before I believe the parents who want it for their children have had it for their children, have gotten the vaccines, and the others who chose not to, they've made that choice on their own. But to get us there, we got to use the calendar to do that. The other issue I look at is the medical professionals, the county health department, the state, the CDC. You can criticize whomever you want, and there's plenty of blame to go around, I think, on this with changes in policies and things like that. But I'm not seeing the preponderance of people saying you just don't need to wear masks. The CDC guidance was very clear that it was for people who have been fully vaccinated and had the 2-week time period. They can go without a mask. That's somehow morphed into everyone, no one needs a mask now. And we're seeing it, I think, tonight in people, and we saw it in the last few weeks too. I know of people who have told me they were doing that it's not a medical reason, they're doing it really as a protest. And I think that's a risk to our students if we allow parents to do that and students to do that in our school district. We're putting other students potentially at risk. I agree it's a small percentage, but there's just no need to do it. Well, let's wait till we get some guidance from professionals that suggests that this is the right avenue to take. And I'm hoping that comes over the summer.
So my concern with tying everything to vaccines is that what if that guidance doesn't come for children under 12? We can be having the same conversation with literally no transmission between students and putting that burden on them for an extended time looking into next fall. And then we're going to hear, but parents chose this, and we're going to hear we can't make any changes. We have to deal with what is now. Vaccines may never come for younger children.
Right.
The CDC may never say, take your mask off. It comes down to us in our community deciding what is important for kids, and to overlook what masks are doing to children, I think, is a mistake. I think that there's a bigger impact on them and their development than we're aware of.
Yep, and I agree with you most of what you said there. I'm not banking at all on the vaccine and trying to get people to take the vaccine. That's up to them and their families. But I want the people who do want it and their children are old enough to go through that, have the time to do that. I think that's only a fair expectation, to allow them the time to get that done. So that's my position.
Kevin, I'm going back to your motion. You said including summer school?
Yes.
So what you're saying, you said.
The recommendation by the district, let me explain, was to exclude it, and we'll cover it at the end. I just want to try to make it clear, because as you read it, somebody might be confused when it excludes summer school, that they might read that to saying, oh, summer school's not. I'm trying to make it clear that my expectation, or my
Kevin, are you asking to adopt the superintendent's proposal, basically?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why don't you make that motion, unless there's discussion about the other aspects of it?
Oh, sure. Because the social distancing and
So
quarantining.
continue with the current board-approved face covering expectation through June 11th?
Right, and include the summer academy in that expectation. That was my motion.
But the way that reads, wouldn't it end on June 11th for summer academy?
Not for summer academy. The summer academy would still, but for other things like events and the beat basketball club, things like that that people rent out the spaces.
So your motion is that masks stay on during summer academy?
Yes, that's my motion.
But that doesn't match the superintendent's recommendation, because it doesn't then include outdoors classes, does it? I mean, we said they don't have to wear them outdoors, but we didn't say anything about classes previously.
Rick, you had a hard time understanding you.
Yeah.
I'm questioning. The superintendent said when we are outdoors, for classes, we're not going to wear them. And before we said outdoor activities, we didn't really say for classes. So I just want to clarify. Kevin's doesn't sound like it's matching Todd's recommendation.
No,
I just want to clarify that.
Currently, we have the policy, if you're outdoors, you do not need to wear a mask. That was about a month ago at that board meeting. We did that. So that, of course, was
Right, but it didn't say for classes. It said when you're outdoors, you have to wear a mask. But we weren't teaching classes outdoors then.
Oh.
It's outdoors.
So
it doesn't
So I
matter.
just want to verify. I just want to clarify.
So you want to add that, Kevin? That summer academy outdoor classes don't have to wear.
If they're outdoors.
Because that's what was in Todd's
In accordance
recommendation.
with policy, right?
I'll add that as an addition. That's fine.
Do you want to second that, Kristen?
Yeah, second.
Okay. Is everyone clear on that?
Brenda, do you get that?
Can you restate that? What the
Yep.
motion is?
Yep. The motion is to continue with current board-approved face covering expectations through June 11th, 2021, and including the summer academy. We can add the portion, if a summer academy course is taking place outdoors, masks would be optional, which is our current policy that the district has when you're outdoors. So,
Are we all good?
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Well, if we agree with part of it, I don't know if we'll see how the vote goes. You might have to split them.
Okay.
So if we don't support it, we're keeping it the same, saying all masks have to be worn at all times. Right? No, it does say that. Never mind.
Never mind? Okay. All right. Anything else? Roll call. Padberg.
Aye.
Netzel.
Aye.
Leach.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Creer.
Aye.
Reimer's an aye. Motion passes. Move on to item B, 3B. And this one states the board may take action regarding contact tracing for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year. And currently, you had mentioned that before, Todd. What's the current policy, just so we're all clear?
The current policy states that contact tracing of 3 feet for the remainder of the 2021 school year, which includes the summer academy, the past 6.
Yeah, so your recommendation is to exclude summer academy, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And so no contract tracing, right?
Correct.
I would move for that recommendation. I make a motion for that recommendation. To continue with the 3 feet of contract tracing through the end of the school year and to exclude summer academy.
You mean to end it at June 11, right?
Yeah.
It's the motion that's
I'll
on.
second that.
Yep. So yeah.
I'd second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
So,
Okay.
Rick, are you clear on that?
Yeah, I seconded it. You just didn't hear me.
What do you say?
Rick seconded it, okay.
so to clarify, there would not be contact tracing at Summer Academy?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Padberg,
Aye.
Netzel,
Aye.
Leach,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Creer,
Aye.
Reimers, and I. Motion passes. Item C, the board may take action regarding social distancing for the remainder of the 2021 school year.
I'd like to make a motion for the recommendation from the superintendent to continue with practices through the end of the school year, but exclude social distancing in summer academy.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Padberg,
Aye.
Netzel,
Aye.
Leach,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Creer,
Aye.
Reimers, and I. Motion passes. Item D, the board may take action regarding quarantining for the remainder of the 2021 school year.
I will make a recommendation to continue with the current practices of quarantining, which is within 3 feet, so we reduce that through June 11th, excluding summer academy. And again, the thought here is this is a transition as we stay masked through summer academy and then return to the fall unmasked. This will allow a good transition for us to kind of understand the environment so we can come into the school year in the fall back to normal.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Padberg,
Aye.
Netzel,
Aye.
Leach,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Creer,
Aye.
Reimers, and I. Motion passes. And then, item, were you going to say
Is
something?
this one null?
I was just going to interject, Chris, this particular motion does not need to be made because of Kevin made the motion initially for
Right.
the face coverings to be covered during summer academy. Right? Is that correct, Kevin?
All right.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Roll call. Padberg,
Aye.
Netzel,
Aye.
Leach,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Creer,
Aye.
Reimers, and I. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.